come to you from sitting down today because I'm tired, you know? The other day I was thinking about how when a poor, or maybe an adaptation that you didn't like, comes out of one of your favourite books, and people say, it ruined the books for me, which is weird. I first became aware of this phenomenon in the Percy Jackson days, so probably around like 2009, 2010. I think that's when the film first came out. I didn't like the film, as many people didn't, because it doesn't follow the plot, the characters aren't right, it's just a mess, I think. Which is a shame because I had quality actors, but some people say that film ruined the Percy Jackson books for them. I don't understand, because they're different and they're separate. And at that time I hated the film, but of course I still loved the books because the books were the same. I then went on later on to continue with the world of Harry Potter, and because I was born in 1999, so I'm 17, and the first Harry Potter book came out in 1997, and the first Harry Potter film, I believe, was 2001. So I was a wee baby child in 2001, and up until about 2008, Harry Potter was just about. It was just a thing that people talked about all the time. We were all aware of it, and every World Book Day, everyone came and dressed up as characters. Often, pretty much, if you were a girl, you were Hermione, otherwise you were a boy, and you would be Harry. It's pretty much the extent of it. I was constantly seeing Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint and just everyone as those characters. So then when I read the books when I was about 7, 8, 9 I think was the time that I read most of them, I saw them as them in my head because I just seen so much with these people as those characters, and it was bizarre. But it didn't spoil the books for me, and I read the books and I still enjoyed them, and I still love the films. Because at that time it was just everyone, every child, adults even, but mostly children of course, were reading it and watching the films and just being a part of that time. So of course I'd seen so much of them in those books, and it kind of happened accidentally. So some scenes I can see so vividly from my own imagination, and other scenes I remember so perfectly through the films. But they're always separate in my mind until I actually really think about it and I realise that they're actually woven so intricately in my own mind. And I'm sure other people who are my age had that similar experience where everyone talked about it, it was always a thing in both formats. What surprises me is when people my age haven't read it or watched it. It's just so many people. I mean, at least obviously in my schools there were so many people who had read it and watched it. And what I can't understand is it because the bad bits of the film just crept into the book, like all those bad feelings you associate with the film, like Percy Jackson film, where they completely destroyed Annabeth's character. Is that associated with the books now as well? Are the books and the films the same thing? We often talk about how the book is always going to be better, and I agree 99% of the time. Occasionally I just love Rosie, as always. I didn't like the book at all, but the film I love. The people who say this, if you say this, is it because of the books now being associated with something you don't like and don't enjoy, or is it that you see the books and the films and the whole story as one, like the story is what you care about? And although the book is the original, the film is still equally valid in your thinking about it. So I always think the book is key, and the book is what I will always go back to, and I will consider the original. It's the original canon, isn't it? But I enjoy it when a film comes out and you can experience the story in a different medium but also share it differently. Like the amount of times you see GIFs and clips from Harry Potter just used in videos or on telly, or you can just talk about things in a different way because you can see it and it's there. And I know people make fantastic fan art for books that don't have films or TV shows or anything like that, and I love that as well. But there's something universal about the films because pretty much everyone, well, a large portion of people who read the books will watch the film, will know about the film. It's like a few times where you just don't know. Like if you don't read it in the times it's the most popular, then you wouldn't maybe know that there's a film. So in times like those, I suppose you don't get the same effect, but when people are talking about it all the time, it's so exciting that you now have pictures and things and sets, and this is obviously one team of people who work on this story and this setting, and that's their idea of that story. Is that it's going to be different if somebody else did it, but that is like the universal vessel for everybody to talk about it, and often for people to find out about the books as well. Like I imagine the amount of people who read Divergent and The Hunger Games after they came after the films came out. I know that I knew about the Hunger Games because the first film was coming out. Same with Twilight, actually. The trailers on the telly brought my attention to the book. Is it the conversation that goes around, like when people talk about Harry Potter, that you don't know whether they're necessarily talking about the books or the films? Or is it something to do with just that story is now warped and ruined in that media, so I don't want to think about the books and I can't get it out of my head? And that's something people say, and I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, you might remember, but for me, if I do think about the poor films like the Percy Jackson films, when I'm reading Percy Jackson, I just highlight how much I love the book and how much the book means to me and how I like it a lot more. I don't know, I think it's something I've never quite understood, but I'd always like to hear what people have to say about it, because I just hear it a lot, but I've never actually understood how that could work. I mean, I can separate the two quite easily, and that doesn't bother me, but I know a lot of people don't, and I'd really like to hear about it. One of my theories is maybe they don't reread the books. I mean, I've reread some books, like Twilight I've read a lot of times, and I think that solidifies the book as one medium in my head than the other one. So the same goes with Love, Rosie. The film didn't ruin the book for me, because although I didn't like the book, it just showed how much I love the film. So I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to think about, I think. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice day, and I shall see you later. Goodbye.